Hey everybody, I'm Christopher Green, and you're tuning into AMTV Alternative Media Television. The protests in Ferguson, Missouri, which you're seeing on national television today, the riots and the looting and the tear gas and the militarized police officers, is a psyop to declare martial law in America. Not just in Ferguson, Missouri, but nationwide, in every American city in the United States. And in today's video, I'm here to explain the how and the why of this implementation process. We also saw this with the recent Boston Marathon bombings, with two alleged Chechen suspects responsible for the attack that left 3 people dead and hundreds tragically injured. An entire American city locked down, martial law effectively declared, and men, women, children, husbands, wives, and their kids being forcefully and violently taken out of their homes to search for a single unarmed suspect. The youngest brother at the time, who was hiding in a boat in a neighborhood suburb of Boston, and the police and the militarized cops opening fire with semi-automatic and automatic weapons for a single accused individual who happened to be unarmed in a boat. You can look all of this up for yourself. You can see the violent images. You can see the militarization of the local police and the martial law state that Boston was in at that given point in recent history. Now we have the same thing happening in Ferguson, Missouri today, with the governor of the state of Missouri declaring martial law last night, saying and citing that things have gotten out of hand. And that's the reason that the National Guard has been ordered into the city streets of Ferguson, Missouri. But you see, all of this was the game plan from the beginning. All of this, a smoke and mirrors campaign by the Obama administration and those that empower him at the highest law of the land. Notice how the president likened himself to Trayvon Martin, but not Michael Brown, which some people looked at and thought was kind of racist in and of itself. But there's an important point about that difference, because the intention and the story has never really been about the tragic and fatal shooting of Michael Brown, or what most people see as a race issue boiling over at face value. No, this has all been and has always been about government power and also martial law. And it's a psyop. This is psychological operations. This is what is known as psychological warfare. You see, it's a conditioning process to condition the American people to accepting giving up their rights, accepting turning Boston into a martial law state with militarized police officers and the National Guard in the city streets at the time, opening fire with semi-automatic, automatic weapons, riot gear, and MRAPs into the city streets, conditioning the masses to think that this is okay to hunt down a single unarmed individual at the time, Dzhokhar Tsarnaev. Now we see the same thing happening in Ferguson, Missouri today. And most people blow it over and only look at the issues at face value and are distracted by the smoke and mirrors campaign and are only focusing on race. Again, the intention here has never been to unite the people. It's been to divide and conquer the American people. Let me give you another example. In 2008, post the financial bailouts, something that we experienced here in the United States of America and in Europe and largely globally, the American people were sold the idea that unless they bailed out the same billionaire bankers with trillions of dollars of taxpayer-infused bailouts, that the world was going to come to an end. These billionaires actually pitched the idea that unless the little guy, the slaves, the American people bailed out with taxpayer-infused funds, the rich, that the entire global economy was going to come to a grinding halt and the world would come to an end. And you see, that in and of itself was psychological warfare, was a psyop. And the American people bought off on it hook, line, and sinker, exactly what they're doing in Ferguson, Missouri today. But in another country, not too far away, a place called Iceland, the people did the exact opposite post the 2008 financial crash with the pots and pans peaceful revolution. In fact, thousands, maybe more, people hit the city streets of Iceland banging their pots and pans and said no to the engineered and manufactured financial bailouts that the American people bought off on hook, line, and sinker in the United States. And instead of bailing out the same billionaire bankers that robbed them in 2008 and caused the largest calamity and financial crash in the history of the world, they actually took the opposite approach. And with their peaceful pots and pan banging revolution, promptly arrested those bankers responsible and revolted, and actually through revolution replaced those officials. And they put regular people in power that made up the Icelandic population to hopefully prevent a crisis from that, like that, from ever happening again. But you see, the American people, a lot of you at least, have never even heard the story of Iceland. You've never even heard of the pots and pans peaceful revolution. And you see, that inherently lies the point. The mainstream narrative is always and has always been intended to divide and conquer the American people. And what we're seeing transpire in Ferguson, Missouri today is all a part of a much larger agenda. It is a psyop to control the American people. It is a psyop to declare martial law, not just in Ferguson, Missouri, not just in Boston, but in every city and throughout the city streets of America and the United States today. And it has always been about government power. You see, you keep the groundlings and you keep the slaves divided. You keep them focused on heavily divisive issues like race, while you control and you implement your government power. And while you show sheer force in the form of the declaration of martial law, which is exactly what's happened in Ferguson, Missouri, and is exactly what happened in Boston not too long ago, and is exactly what will happen in every American city. When the American people finally wake up to the fact that they have a voice, and they have the same power that the people of Iceland have. The power to arrest the criminals in Washington, D.C., the power to prosecute the banksters on Wall Street today, and to take back their own constitutional government. And it's why you'll never see a single headline in the mainstream media talking about the Icelandic Revolution and their prosecution of bankster criminals and the corporate and political elite, because it's not a part of the agenda and it has nothing to do with controlling the masses. Again, all of this a divide and conquer strategy, folks, and all of this engineered by the government political elite. I'm Christopher Green. Get this video out everywhere, make it viral, hard-hitting it in your face, and click the link below to support our sponsor.